Hello everybody, and welcome to today's recap of the anime series titled The Dungeon of the Black Company. In a nutshell, it's a story about a fellow who becomes filthy rich and is able to generate generational wealth simply by making smart investments and without ever having to work a day in his life. Regrettably, poor fellow's days of blissful laziness are soon shattered after he somehow gets teleported to another world and is forced to work hard for mere pennies there every day. To learn what happens next, keep watching. In the initial scene, the NEET named Kinji Ninomiya is standing next to the window of his luxurious penthouse. The arrogant snob can't help but look down at the misfortune of many other miserable corporate grunts. After all, those poor folks are forced to toil hard each day at work only to earn mere peanuts by the end of the month. In contrast to them, the quick-witted Kinji utilized his brain to build himself a superb real estate investment portfolio and therefore continues receiving a shedload of passive income each month. What's funny though is how Kinji's long-cherished dream of living the rest of his life as a lazy bum is soon ruined after some wretched portal drags him away to some twisted alternate reality named Moria all of a sudden. Suck it up, pal, because that's exactly what you get for being too full of yourself. Anyways, poor Kinji becomes enslaved by the evil Raizaha Mining Corporation soon upon his arrival and is left with no choice but to mine dungeons for 16 hours a day. Thankfully, the depressed guy soon discovers a secret passageway leading to a relatively safe and mineral-rich area on the third floor of the dungeon. Up next, Kinji allies himself with a fellow crocodile demi-human co-worker named Wanibi in hopes that the dumb-looking fella might come in handy one day. Regrettably, things don't go as planned as a terrifying creature starts assaulting them both soon upon their arrival. The crafty Kinji here promises to keep the creature fed 24/7 in exchange for it becoming his personal bodyguard, plus also helping him mine the dungeon. The creature unexpectedly agrees to this strange proposal and therefore transforms into a little girl named Rim. Unfortunately, Kinji's grand scheme is ruined yet again, since most of his profits are wasted upon buying meals for the gluttonous and ever-hungry Rim. Sometime later, Kinji is seen busy with his routine mining work when an entire army of dungeon ants appear out of the blue just then and start to madly chase after him. Thankfully, the guy himself transforms into an ant after digesting some magic potion and therefore escapes being bitten till death. Up next, the cunning fellow introduces the concept of workers' rights and blah 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 to the exhausted worker ants. Long story short, Ninomiya successfully manipulates the simple-minded ants into leading an uprising against their tyrant Ant Queen. As expected, the Ant Queen becomes infuriated upon witnessing her plans getting foiled by the nasty Kinji and his wretched schemes. However, the previously arrogant Ant Queen soon becomes scared witless after Rim makes an abrupt entrance and attempts to eat her. Thankfully, Kinji prevents the Ant Queen from becoming Rim's dinner, and as a show of gratitude, the Ant Queen, as well as the rest of her subordinate ants together, all swear their loyalty to Kinji. With Wanibi, Rim, as well as an entire army of ants by his side, Kinji finally feels confident in secretly opening up his Dungeon Black Company and vows to one day put the wicked Raizaha Mining Corporation out of business. On the following day, a muscle-brained girl named Shia becomes appointed as Kinji and his team's supervisor. What frustrates Kinji is how Shia is fanatically devoted to Raizaha while continuously turning a blind eye to her employer's company's various exploitation means and wicked tactics. Finally, Kinji's river of patience runs dry, and so he forces Shia to posing for a group selfie together with him and his monster co-workers. Up next, the ruthless Kinji threatens to expose those photos of Shia smiling together with Rim and the Ant Queen should she ever attempt to betray him. In such a way, poor Shia is successfully blackmailed into secretly working hard and running errands for Kinji and his wretched Dungeon Black Company. A couple days later, a gruesome creature commonly referred to as the Majin spawns out of the dungeon and attempts to annihilate Kinji and his party members. Thankfully, Kinji and the rest are all well prepared for such a ferocious attack. Soon enough, the pitiful Majin start to regret being born after having fallen victim to Kinji's various hidden traps, as well as Shia's brutal sword slashes. Rim later delivers the final blow by chewing away the Majin's head. In the battle aftermath, both Kinji and Rim somehow mysteriously get teleported to some distant land yet another time. Instead of it being another world though, Kinji discovers how he's still in Amuria, albeit 300 years ahead in the future. Soon, it's revealed how a cross-dressing male priest named Ranga was the one who summoned Kinji here for the sake of rescuing the entire human race. Kinji thus makes his way towards the infamous Demon Lord's castle for a much more detailed explanation of the current affairs. Once there, both Kinji and Rim's jaws drop to the ground after learning that the Majin they together defeated in the past happens to be the fearsome Demon Lord they've heard so much about ever since they arrived in the future. Said Majin, whose name is Sky, now goes on to elaborate her backstory in detail. Turns out, the ancient tech-savvy Colonian civilization first created all the dungeons. Meanwhile, overpowered monsters such as Rim and Sky were created to serve those dungeons' guardians by managing the mana flow and establishing equilibrium there. Regrettably, the airheaded Rim left her post to adventure the outside world together with Kinji. Without a proper guardian, Belza and her evil mining corp easily dug their way down the dungeon's bottom and therefore successfully got their greedy hands on the Colonians' advanced technology. From then on, Razaha's mining corp became unstoppable and started to take over the world. Meanwhile, Sky has been fighting both tooth and nail with Razaha for the past many centuries in order to preserve peace on the planet. Unfortunately, the enemy's gotten too strong now, and Sky's defeat as well as the planet's ruin seems inevitable now. As a result, the future Sky requests Kinji to teleport back to the past and prevent Razaha from obtaining the Colonians' technology and ultimately laying ruin to the entire planet. Kinji, of course, has his grudge to settle with Razaha and thus willingly blinks back to the past. Once back in the past, Kinji and his fellow teammates head straight towards the 5th floor, beyond which lie the much-coveted Colonian treasures. Here, the villainous Kinji manipulates many of his fellow co-workers into doing all the dirty work, such as getting rid of monsters for him, and ultimately ends up monopolizing the Colonian technology for himself. From there onwards, Kinji instantly quits the Razaha's mining corp and even publicizes his own Dungeon Black company. Not only that, but the insightful fellow even buys and transforms a lot of the abandoned dungeons into profitable theme parks. Such a revolutionary business model successfully generates tons of profit on Kinji's side, while simultaneously leading to a sharp decline in the market value of Razaha's stocks in just a matter of days. This infuriates Belza, who instantly starts plotting her revenge against Kinji by using his upright as well as airheaded friend Shia as the essential chess piece. Not long afterwards, Kinji is arrested on behalf of dozens of his past crimes, which were all brought to light thanks to Shia's testimony. However, the innocent Shia soon realizes how she's been manipulated by Belza into testifying against Kinji and therefore instantly visits to apologize to him at the jail. Kinji doesn't seem much affected by his tragic downfall though. On the flip side, Belza can't help but gloat as she gets promoted to Razaha's director. What's funny though is how Kinji is soon announced as Razaha's mining company's new CEO right afterwards. Poor Belza becomes flabbergasted and confused by such a sudden turn of events. Soon, she learns how Kinji had an emergency manual prepared and handed over to his friend Wanibi's custody for such a rainy occasion. Following the manual, Wanibi and the Ant Queen first bribed all other miners into removing their allegations against Kinji and testifying just how great a person he truly is. Up next, they also bought off about 40% of Razaha's shares under Kinji's name by utilizing all the money he had stockpiled until now. The final nail in the coffin was planted once owners of 15% other shares were convinced to switch over to Kinji's side as well. To sum it up, despite all her efforts as well as vengeful schemes, Belza couldn't help but end up serving under the person she hates the most in this whole wide world. Meanwhile, Kinji is more motivated than ever and continues laying the groundwork for his eventual conquest of the entire planet. This basically marks the end of Season 1. Don't forget to tell whether or not you're rooting for the second season's recap down in the comments.